Hello, here is Kramer's Corner with a special edition, the semiconductor analysis. And today I will start with ASML, the big European manufacturer. Daily chart, key support 943.60, that should be observed. A close below, we could see a sell-off down to around 898, possibly down to key strong support around 864.50. And if we expand a little bit, we can see how important it is. We also have the key, the cloud area here giving some support. We have the 55 and 100 moving average coming up there. There is no divergence on the RSI. It is in a positive sentiment, indicating we should see higher highs in ASML, but we need a close above 989.30 for a confirmation of that. For now, we are just trading sideways. Medium term, we can see that there's some divergence here. We can see the RSI is actually lower than over here where we had a lower high. So a little bit stalling a little bit at the moment. So maybe we should have a little bit of could see a little bit of correction, but keep an eye on 943.60. Moving on to Nvidia, which is of course one of the biggest, not one of the biggest, the biggest AI semiconductor chip producers in the world, and also now the biggest by market cap in general, surpassing the Microsoft that was previously held the title. I did this analysis this morning, just to reiterate here. We had a bearish engulfing formed here Thursday last week, opened lower Friday. Currently it seems to be trading around pre-market 123.5. That seems to be very close to where we will be opening, a couple of dollars lower. Support at 115.82. Could correct down to around 106.47, but the key strong support is this gap area here. And you can also see that the 55 moving average will provide some support in this. It's a really strong support area, 106.47, 101.52. There is no divergence on the RSI, indicating this is merely just a correction. However, we can also see here that the volume was actually fading a bit on the last uptrend, and it picked up during the sell-off late last week. It's going to be interesting where we'll end today. On the weekly chart, we can see here how the Nvidia share price reached 300% of this correction here, so we are in for a bit of a correction on bearish correction. Divergence on the RSI, but if RSI is closing above the falling trend line and especially above the dashed line here, I believe we'll see higher levels on Nvidia on the medium term. However, it is interesting to see we should keep an eye on the overall falling traded volume. That is a bit of a worry, but let's see here the next couple of days. But just to reiterate, keep an eye on these levels there as highlighted on the daily chart. ARM Holdings, that has been really on fire lately, also after a little bit of a correction, stalling right now, but there's no RSI divergence. Volume has picked up nicely. Unfortunately, also during the sell-off, so we do have a little bit of a correction here, top and reversal, but I think it's just a correction. Key support 145, that should be observed. A close below, we could see a larger correction down to 130, 120 possibly. Medium term, well, as you can see, since we don't have that much historic data. It was only listed here about a little less than a year ago. It doesn't really give us much, so keep an eye on these levels on the daily chart. Moving on to Supermicro, also a stock that has been that was on fire early this year, but has been depressed a little bit, starting to build up momentum again. Possibly RSI is actually back in positive sentiment, but it was rejected at 1020 resistance, 1020 spot 33 to be exact. Didn't close above the cloud, and that is key for further upside. It really needs to close above 1020, 1021. Then I think we'll see a push towards previous highs around 1229. If it moves back below the cloud area, back in the 800 region, then we could see a pressure coming back to towards 698, 663 key support area. On the weekly chart, however, we can see there's no RSI divergence indicating likely higher highs in the coming weeks and months for a super micro computer, but it is still struggling. Really needs to get back above 1221. Moving on to Broadcom, that shot up here about a week ago, a little bit more than a week ago. Massive gap it did here in mid-June. It is now testing the lows of that at 1652.50. If it does close below that, well, then we could see a pressure of sellers trying to close the gap down to below 1500. I'm not quite sure they will succeed, to be honest, but I wouldn't be surprised if we dip down to around 1600 before buyers will come back in. And we can see RSI, there's no divergence on the RSI, and it's still in a positive sentiment. The uptrend in the share price has been supported by the rising volume. However, a lot of volume going through also on the selling pressure, so it will be key here the next couple of days. And at the moment it is actually trading at 1645, so just a little bit below, but let's see if it does close below. But this gap area is really key. I don't think it will be closed all the way down to 1500 before buyers will come back in and lift it, but again, there's no guarantees in this world. Here we have the weekly chart. Massive bearish candle Friday. There is divergence, as you can see here on the RSI. The RSI values have been declining, as we can see here. So it is indicating we are a little bit stressed in the uptrend. It is in an exhaustive mode, but it hasn't confirmed that the top and reverse pattern just yet. And if it bounces back here above 1700 and starts moving towards 1800, we could see higher highs. At least there is room for it, according to the RSI, the strength indicator. Moving on to an oldie one that has been quite depressed for a long time. Intel, that back during the .com bubble was one of the big stars, obviously, has formed here on the daily chart after massive sell-off, several gaps down, and now in this sideways range, really getting more and more narrow, like a very narrow triangle-like pattern. If it does break bearish out of it, and especially closing below 29.87, and we get the RSI to close back below the 40 level, well, then I think we'll see another push lower towards around $25, which we can see here on the weekly chart, which is these lows here back from late 2022 and 2023, early Q1, Q2. If it does break out the upper falling trend line here on the daily and takes out the levels here around 31.5, well, then I think we could see a push towards 35 potentially, but the 55 moving average will provide some resistance. And we can also have a look at, see if we do this, just add a little bit of a horizontal line there. There'll be some resistance at 32.25, 32.5, around that level, and then obviously also the gap area. Gap areas are really interesting too, and you should observe this gap area. It will probably try to close that if it can close above 32.25. Moving on to Micron computer, which is earnings due here on the 26th, in 2 days, Wednesday. It actually formed a massive bearish engulfing Thursday, where we also had Nvidia performing a bearish engulfing, actually taking out the two massive, really strong bullish days, taking them out, neutralizing that with a massive sell-off, continued Friday, and it will be interesting here in the next couple However, at the moment in the pre-market, Micron is trading up 2.4% to around 143, so a little bit of a bounce trying to push higher. And also the RSI, it's interesting, we are in a positive sentiment. There is divergence, however, as you can see, it has never been below 40 since it actually made that peak. So if we can get RSI back above 60 and especially back above the upper falling trend line here, then I think we'll see higher highs on Micron. Maybe the earnings Wednesday can help it with that. On the weekly chart, there is divergence, as you can see here on the RSI. So uptrend a little bit stressed, and we can also see that the volume has been declining over the past few months and only came back here in massive sell-off. So be careful with this one. It seems to be in trend exhaustion mode, but maybe the earnings Wednesday can change that a bit. Qualcomm also an interesting chip manufacturer here. Forming a Doji Evening Star or shooting star-like pattern, top and reversal pattern here. Key support 198.71. It could test that there is divergence on the RSI, as you can see here, but the volume actually did support the uptrend here. So I think we will pause here around 200 level, and then buyers will come back in. Currently, it is trading around 207 as spot 60 pre-market. So we are down here around these levels here in this region here. So it is not unlikely we could see a test of the 200 and the support line there that we don't want to see broken, because then we could see further selling below 190. For the uptrend to resume, well, it really needs to cancel this top and reversal pattern here, and it can only do that by trading above 230 but 65. Indication of that could be if it trades above 220, but it could also be a false bullish break, bullish move. But if we do get a close above on the RSI of the upper falling trend line, that is a very good indication we are likely to cancel this top reversal pattern and resume to uptrend daily. That was the daily chart. Weekly chart. Let's expand it a little bit because it's a little bit more blurry. We had this massive shoot up here, and then it collapsed towards the end of the week. There is a little bit of divergence. You can see this peak here is lower than this one, but that close here was higher than this one. So we are actually also at the trend exhaustion, and this is what you can do. You can draw trend lines on the RSI as well, and they work very well. Sometimes it's more clear to see if it. I think it will drop lower to touch the lower rising trend line, and possibly also 60 threshold, and then it could bounce off. If it does, there's potential higher for Qualcomm, but it is really in exhaustive mood at the moment, but it can be cancelled with higher levels on the RSI. Finally, the Taiwan Semiconductor TSM, which also formed here Friday a bearish engulfing, like it took out the and it was actually a shooting star also. That is also in itself a top and reversal indicator, and then it was followed by a bearish engulfing like pattern that actually took out these 2 days of well, at the end of the day, bullish trading. However, also here we have positive RSI values, no divergence. That is indicating we, after a correction, that could take TSM down to around the 160, 161 level. It should actually be at the closing price there around 160. There's some support, and of course also just around the low here at that little dip to around 147 spot 80 in that area. So it seems a little bit top is also short term. We are currently opening on the exchanges, and we are trading 2.2% lower on TSM. Also here trading around $170. It is really almost like a shooting star. It should ideally have been a little bit flat, this candle here, but it does look like it is in exhaustive mode, and there is divergence on the RSI indicating the uptrend is in exhaustive mode. All right, that's all for today. Thank you very much for listening. I have to stress, however, or I have to underline, however, I am a shareholder in some of them. Whether I will not be that after this show is I don't know, but I do have TSM. I do have. I think that's the only one I have at the moment, actually. Sorry about that. All right, but for legal reasons, I have to tell you that. Okay, thank you very much for listening. Have a nice day and happy trading.